Welcome to the Playmakers podcast. In today's episode, we're going to start off with the college football round. Take a look inside the Big 12 with the season 29 days away. Can anybody stop Oklahoma from repeating? We'll also look at the group of five. Besides UCF, what other group of five teams I'll be looking at to make a New Year's Six run. But we'll also go to the NFL ranks, going up north, AFC North, NFC North. Pittsburgh runs the North on the AFC side. But can Baltimore stop them? And how much improvement will Cleveland be? In the NFC side, everything starts and stops with Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers. But Kirk Cousins in Minnesota and Mike Patricia's the head man at Detroit. Let's get into it. Hello, everybody. The day is here. The day has come. The Playmakers podcast is here. I'm your host, Darnell, the Playmaker Sallins. I got my co-host, Dallas Glenn, with me. How's it going?
Good morning. It's going good, people. It's nice and rainy here in sunny Pensacola, Florida.
It's a nice and sunshine day out here in Jacksonville. But we're going to get into it. We're going to talk college football. 29 days away from starting. We're going to look into the Big 12 and, looking at ESPN, looking at their power rankings and stuff. For the Big 12, they got Oklahoma repeating as the top team in the conference. They also have West Virginia, TCU, Texas, and Oklahoma State running out the top five. Now, last year, the Big 12 conference was run by the Oklahoma Sooners, led by Baker Mayfield, who's no longer there. He's in the NFL, drafted number 1 overall by the Cleveland Browns. So, Dallas, how do you see the Big 12 going down this year?
Well, when looking at last year and then thinking of how everything played out and what's going on paper, I think that Oklahoma definitely should be the favorite. I don't really know if TCU is going to overcome that hump yet, but Baker Mayfield was a special player. I mean, dude was the first ever walk-on to win the Heisman. So that's a pretty big loss. Losing a quarterback of that level, that could be a hit. What do you think about Baker Mayfield leaving as far as Oklahoma's concerned?
I mean, Baker Mayfield leaving, it's a big hit, but they had another quarterback line and waiting. Kyle Murray, he had he started one of them games. Baker Mayfield got suspended. He looked very good, so I think they'll be all right in Lincoln Riley's second year at the helm there. I think they'll be all right. And then looking at the overall power rankings that ESPN released it out, I believe, yesterday. But when you look at the overall, Oklahoma's at 7. You don't get to your second Big 12 team until you reach 20 at West Virginia, followed by TCU at 21 and Texas at 22. So that lets me know that the Big 12 might have a down year this season. According to ESPN, they believe the Big 12 is going to fall off unless Oklahoma continues to be Oklahoma.
You know what the weird thing is about the Big 12 and necessarily falling off? Like, it's not falling off when that's been the trend. Like, Texas has been in a slump. West Virginia has never been able to take that second gear. TCU has always been on the rise, but not there yet. Like, when you think of the big scheme of things in the college football playoff era, the Big 12 is doing what they've always done. If anything, I think we should be surprised that 4 teams have cracked the top 25 in the preseason.
They pretty much put Oklahoma State out of it, losing their quarterback and a wide receiver from a year ago. So they don't know what to expect from Oklahoma State. So they went from being number 2 in the conference last year to now being ranked 5th to finish 5th in the conference this year. So they pretty much looking at Texas, TCU, West Virginia, and Oklahoma to battle it out for pretty much what might be a college playoff spot.
Yeah. We'll get into it in a minute, but I'm looking at the Big12sports.com, the official website of Big 12. They got Oklahoma State supposedly finishing second. And they got Texas finishing 4th, and West Virginia finishing 6th. In the pre-podcast meeting, we were talking. That's what's kind of so interesting to me that they have West Virginia in the top 25 in the preseason, but they're picked to finish 6th by their own conference.
I mean, that's one of the things I don't like about when they do these power rankings, these preseason rankings, to see how everybody's doing based on what's coming back and who left and stuff like that. Because you never know. Because if you notice, every time they done this, the team, the at least 2 of the top 4 teams that they start with, doesn't finish that way.
Yeah,
so it's hard. It's hard to say what team's gonna do what and how they gonna finish. I mean, I got Oklahoma's schedule right here. They opened up against Lane Kiffin at FAU. That's gonna be a sneaky one. It's in Norman, but it's still gonna be a sneaky one. Then they have UCLA comes to Norman the following week. Big 12, Pac-12. That's always an interesting game when it comes to them 2 conferences. Then they open conference play at Iowa State. If people who have watched college football over the years, they know going to Iowa State is not an easy task.
No, it's not.
That is never an easy task. Iowa State has some of the biggest upset in Big 12 history when a top team comes into that place.
Yeah.
Then they have Army, Baylor. The Red River Rivalry with Texas on October 6th. At TCU, circle that game. October 20th at TCU. They end the season with Oklahoma State coming to Norman, Kansas coming to Norman, but they go to West Virginia to close the season. That Friday, I believe it's Black Friday, at West Virginia. That could determine who's going to the conference championship, or could we have a conference championship rematch?
I'm a level with you. I don't see how Oklahoma doesn't repeat. I'm looking at the schedules of the other 3 teams that cracked the top 25, and man, it's not pretty. You got Texas, who has forever been in a slump. They got Maryland, USC, and Tulsa as their out-of-conference opponents. That's 3 straight weeks opening up the season against non-conference opponents. Then they start their conference schedule, and if they beat USC, if they beat Maryland, if they're not walking into week 4, 1 and 2, they play TCU. Then they play Oklahoma in week 6. So to be honest, man, Texas can be out of the mix before the first half of the season is even over. Then, you get West Virginia. They're opening up against Tennessee. And then in week 3, they go to NC State. And then they play at Iowa State October 13th. So they can be out the mix. They could have 2 losses. Then I'm looking at TCU. And, they're opening up the week against Southern, a FCS team. So that's going to hurt them. Because they're opening up week. Then they play Ohio State week 3 after playing SMU. And SMU, they're not quite ready to get national respect yet. But I mean, you play SMU at SMU. Then you play Ohio State. It's a home game, but it's Ohio State. And that's going to be on ABC. Then they play Iowa State. Luckily, they get Iowa State at home. Then they play Oklahoma. It's tough, man, because, it's not like Oklahoma has the easiest schedule in the world. It's not.
They're looking at the Big 12 on a down year, except for Oklahoma, while all the other Power 5 conferences is on the up.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So, I think, so in the big scheme of things, besides Oklahoma, do you think the Big 12 is really going to be a factor this year?
I mean, it's hard to say because West Virginia has a good team. I feel like they can build on what they done last year, and they can make some noise. So I'm like, don't sleep on West Virginia. Don't sleep on Texas. Don't sleep on TCU. So these teams, they coming back off of what was a good season. So they looking to improve upon their season. So don't sleep on these teams. and just think Oklahoma's gonna run away with it. Because I think Oklahoma's gonna be in some dog fights this season.
And this is where, in college football, way more than the NFL, is the coaching edge. The successor to Bob Stoops in Oklahoma, he knows the drill. I'm trying to look up right now West Virginia's coach, but West Virginia, for the longest time, Big East and Big 12, they haven't really, as a program, been able to get over that hump. Whereas it seems like Bob Stoops' successor, he knew how to keep the ball rolling. That's a big thing when it's like pedigree and precedence. A team like West Virginia getting picked 6 by their own conference, being ranked like in the bottom 5 of the top 25, it can happen. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. All they got to do is go undefeated, and bam, they're in the playoff. Happened to Washington. Should have happened to Wisconsin.
I mean, it's an interesting season as I sit here. Let us transition to the Group of 5 discussion. We might do a part 2 depending on how this goes, but if we're gonna do Group of 5, we have to start with UCF. As they went, everybody know, undefeated last season. They beat Auburn in the Peach Bowl and the New Year's Six Bowl. Scott Frost left. Shaquem Griffin got drafted to the Seattle Seahawks to play with his brother, Shaquille. So, UCF still has their talents back. So, but they're ranked 24th in the overall power ranking, and ESPN has Boise State ranked 19th. So they are believing in Boise State bringing back 10 starters from the defense, along with the starters that they have on offense, to say they'll probably be the best Group of 5 team in this season's coming up. Do you agree with that, Dallas?
I don't know. When I compare the schedules of the two, nothing's really standing out to me in either case for why one team should be over the other. I mean, it's a toss up. It's a toss up. Boise State has been a model of consistency, and I think that they were the safe pick as far as picking a Group of 5 champion per se. But as the short analysis on ESPN.com says, UCF is essentially returning the core of their offense and defense. They just lost stars. Lost their leading receiver, lost their best linebacker, lost their head coach. But as far as the nucleus of the team, it's there. I think as far as this year goes, I think the safe pick is Boise State. And if we're talking about just this season, I think it probably will be Boise State or maybe somebody else from the American Conference. But I'm looking at the schedule, and it doesn't seem like anything too difficult.
I mean, looking at Boise's schedule, at Troy to open up, UConn at home, Oklahoma State. That's a game you might want to circle on September 15th. Boise State going to Stillwater, Oklahoma to play the Cowboys. Keep an eye on that game. That could be an upset right there.
Mm-hmm.
But then looking at UCF's schedule, this stretch that I'm about to give you is going to tell me how they look. They open up the season in conference at UConn.
Mm-hmm.
They're at home against South Carolina State.
Mm-hmm.
They go to North Carolina. They have FAU coming to Orlando, Pittsburgh coming to Orlando, SMU coming to Orlando, at Memphis, at East Carolina before they have a bye week. So by the time UCF get to a bye week, everybody should have an idea of what kind of season they're going to have.
If UCF gets to the bye week undefeated, I mean, they're going Temple, Navy, Cincinnati, USF. If they beat North Carolina and Pittsburgh, beat FAU in-state rivalry, beat Memphis, beat SMU, who'll probably surprise a lot of people this season. If they can basically win out their first stretch, it's just a matter of not getting too overconfident. Because, I mean, that's it's a good little stretch. I mean, the American Conference it's a good conference, man. Like, and, you know, even though FAU is in the CUSA, it's a good schedule. It's a good schedule. They're definitely responding to the critics that they had last year. But the big thing is just the coaching change and losing Shaquem Griffin. Like, Boise State's schedule isn't necessarily as eye-popping, but BYU, Independent, Oklahoma State, Big 12. Then you got quality group of 5 teams in the Mountain West itself. I mean, you know, it's not like the Mountain West is a scrub conference. I mean, FAU is pretty much the only team in the CUSA that's really going to make some noise. But, you know, the Mountain West and the American, you know, those teams top to bottom, they're good conferences. This isn't the Sun Belt we're talking about. Like, these are 2 good conferences where if Boise State or UCF goes undefeated and the other team has a loss, I don't think there's much difference between those 2 teams.
Well, staying in the Mountain West, I'm looking at San Diego State schedule. They open at Stanford. To me, that's an intriguing matchup.
Coming out the gate hot.
Then they play Sacramento State, but they have Arizona State coming to town.
Ooh.
So 2 of the first 3 games is against Pac-12 teams.
Ooh.
And we're not talking bottom level Pac-12 teams. We're talking legit good Pac-12 teams in which Herman Edwards is the head coach at Arizona State.
So that means that San Diego State looked at what happened to UCF and said, that can't be us. I think everybody must have taken note. Because like me and you have done, we've not just right now, we've looked at top group of 5 team schedules. And for the most part, you know, there's some quality. You can't go wrong with the Mountain West or the American. Because Air Force and Colorado State, they're probably going to try to come back and make some noise too. So Boise State, if they were to run the table and win the Mountain West, and the Mountain West is about to have a lot of credibility on their champion's resume, like, ooh. I mean, it's not going to be between the American and the Mountain West champ, the schedules of the people in the Mountain West Conference. Oh, it makes you wonder, like, if Oklahoma gets 2 losses, which is the team then that's supposed to move up? Because going by the preseason rankings is so difficult because they have 2 of the teams in the same conference. So it's like a 2-loss Oklahoma better than an undefeated Boise State?
That's the question. That's the thing when they come up with these preseason power rankings or how they seeing these teams. You don't know what can happen. So
you know what's also another tricky thing? Right now, if the top 25 were to officially be what ESPN's power ranking would be, UCF has to climb up 5 spots just to get at Boise State's level. So that means as both teams win and both teams climb, Boise could probably lose against Oklahoma State and still be ranked higher than UCF if UCF were to somehow go undefeated. That's the tricky thing about the polls. Boise State could still finish the group of 5 champion if they just don't see it from UCF. If UCF were to win every game close, I don't know. It's college football is just funny like that. Because, I mean, Oklahoma State, that's their hardest out-of-conference opponent. But at the same time, it's not impossible. It depends. Because, you know, if San Diego State Colorado State, if Fresno State, if they finish with respectable records and don't get blown out in those games against Power 5 teams, we both get the pick. We both understand the safety of picking Boise State. But, it's tricky. Because UCF, coming off of what they did, if they can change coaches and build off of last season, go undefeated again, and undefeated is hard, but at the same time, we all just have to be honest. If a group of 5 team loses a game, they're not going to make the playoff. They have to go undefeated to make the playoff. If UCF were to go undefeated again, I just don't know if both teams go undefeated, which team is truly that much better than the other.
And the thing is, if both teams undefeated, only one of them can get a New Year's Six Bowl bid.
Exactly, because then that's because the way the committee works and the way college football works. Oh, that's the thing, because Boise State is Boise State, and I think their position in the rankings has proven that people respect Boise State and respect what they've done in the past. But UCF is a relative newcomer. I mean, the game against Baylor that Blake Bortles quarterbacked, that was 2013. That was a while ago. Then they had a slump. Then their legendary head coach retired. Then they got a new coach. Then he left to go to a Power 5 team. So instead of building up UCF to become the next Boise State, he left after 1 year. So it's
We'll get into Scott Frost when we get down to the Big Ten and Nebraska. I got some things to say about that, but I would save that for later. But it's gonna be interesting to watch these group of 5 teams battle it out to see who's gonna get noticed by the committee. Because right now it's just UCF and Boise. So what are we saying about South Florida, Memphis, San Diego State, Fresno State?
True. I think that the thing that hurts the other teams in the group of 5 is if they're not getting the preseason attention, they have to go undefeated. And going undefeated is very hard. I mean, like when you look at Western Michigan a couple years back, they literally went on a magical run. Magical. But as the season went on, more people had to help them by losing. More upsets had to happen. They did their job by going undefeated, but so many other people have to lose for a group of 5 team to overcome those that have a reputation.
I remember that year. They gave Wisconsin a run for their money. Wisconsin survived, but that was one of the top bowl games of that year. So you Western Michigan that year, that was a very good year.
Yeah. So it's not so much that I don't think that the other group of 5 teams shouldn't have relevance. It's just when you compare it to probably the worst Power 5 conference, I just can't. If a West Virginia comes out of nowhere, if a Texas comes out of nowhere, if there's a 1 or 2 loss Big 12 team not named Oklahoma, I just don't know if San Diego State or USF would have the resume and reputation to be better than a 1 or 2 loss Big 12 champion not named Oklahoma. Because I think even still, if Oklahoma has a loss and wins the Big 12, they're in the discussion for the playoff.
I mean, a 1-loss Oklahoma team, yeah, you still talking about they could possibly get into the playoffs with no problem. It just depends on what the other teams in their respective conferences done.
Yeah, and that's once again, those are conversations for another day because, like I said before, with Western Michigan, a lot of things have to happen after you lose a game. A lot of things have to happen if you go undefeated, but a lot of things got to happen if you lose a game. And the Big 12 has a championship game now for one very obvious reason. And it's not just because it makes a lot of money. They knew that they needed a championship game to get into the playoff. It's a direct response to them not getting in the playoff those first couple years. But I mean, also it could backfire. Imagine if Oklahoma walks into the Big 12 championship game with a loss already. And imagine if they're playing, Texas, West Virginia, or TCU. Imagine if they have those good years and they're walking in undefeated. So, Texas finishes with 2 losses. Now we got to wonder, okay, so Texas, if they lose to somebody in the Big 12 game and they finish with 2 losses, we know they're out the playoff, but should they get a New Year's Six bowl at that point? Like, is the Big 12 team so good to where if they don't win their conference championship game, they get a New Year's Six bowl? Because, I mean, I know we're not talking about them right now, but geez, 3 different SEC teams were in a New Year's Six bowl. 3. Are there really 3 teams in the Big 12 that are that much better than the others?
Bring up a fair point, but we're going to cap it right there because we got some NFL stuff to get into. And on today, we talking North. We're talking AFC North, NFC North, but we're going to start in the AFC North. As the AFC North was won by the Pittsburgh Steelers last year. They having some troubles in the offseason. They have franchise tag Le'Veon Bell for the 2nd consecutive season, which he's declaring this will be his best season and most likely his last season in Pittsburgh. Baltimore, they have a quarterback battle between Joe Flacco and Lamar Jackson, their first-round draft pick.
They're being very gracious and generous.
You got Cleveland with their number 1 overall pick in Baker Mayfield, who has a fully guaranteed contract for 4 years.
God bless the man.
Tyrod Taylor is the leader in the quarterback room for now. We don't know how long that will be. Jarvis Landry is over there too, but there'll be no Josh Gordon for who knows how long as he continues to recover from the things that he has gone through in his personal life. So with all that being said, Dallas, how you see the AFC North playing out?
Well, first, I'll start in the big scheme of things. I think that a lot of people agree, unless you're a diehard Ravens or Bengals fan, the Steelers are the contender in this division. Despite Antonio Brown being on the cover of Madden and knowing how the Madden curse works, despite, Le'Veon Bell's contract issues, despite not knowing if Martavius Bryant is going to play the whole season, despite Ben Roethlisberger's aging and constant ankle issues. I mean,
let me correct you real quick. During the draft, Martavius Bryant was traded to Oakland. He's no longer there. So they receiving cores Antonio Brown, Eli Rogers, Juju Smith-Schuster. And I like Juju played well last year.
I mean, the way Juju played, it definitely justifies trading because like I was going to get that was a lot of issues they was dealing with. And the way Juju played, and Juju's a consummate professional. He's a workhorse, hard worker, keeps his head to the ground, so it makes sense. But it's even with all the things you could say about the Steelers, losses, additions, retirements, draft pick. I don't see another team because basically I'm looking at the Ravens. I don't really know with the Ravens defense getting older and older every year and with their offense being their offense and Marshall Yonda not being a guy who can ever control the ball. I don't know if the Ravens can overtake the Steelers. The Ravens have always been able to maximize what they have to its best ability. I mean, they went 9-7 last year. They had a winning record and they were clearly having an off year. But you're basically talking about looking at the last year's standings, 13-3 versus 9-7. You're talking about the Ravens making up 4 games on the Steelers. And even then, it's like, are the Ravens really gonna beat the Patriots? Are they really gonna beat the Chiefs or the Chargers if the Chargers could ever live up to what they're supposed to live up to? Are they going to beat the Jaguars or the Titans or the Texans if those teams can live up to what they're supposed to live up to? It's just I don't see a team in that division overtaking Pittsburgh. And even if they do win the division against Pittsburgh, when the playoffs start, I don't see that team having the composure to beat Pittsburgh or outlast Pittsburgh in the playoffs.
You know, I'm looking at the schedule for all these teams, and you got the Cleveland Browns opening up against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Week 1. Who's going to be a quarterback for Cleveland in Week 1? It's going to be interesting because you have two quarterbacks who pretty much can play the same style of football.
Yeah.
And you already know Pittsburgh and Cleveland, they always get into a nice, tight, grit, old-fashioned football battle.
Yeah, Cleveland, God bless them, they play hard. And, this is the NFL, not college football. So, Cleveland could theoretically win in Week 1. I'm giving them 5 wins. I'm saying right now, Cleveland could get to 5-11. But, I mean, even still, okay, they lose against somebody in their division. Week 1. It happens.
Then you're looking at Week 2, Baltimore and Cincinnati get into it. We know what happened last year. Baltimore was still in the hunt for the playoff spot. They was battling Buffalo to get in. And then in one play, Cincinnati snatched it from them. Allowed Buffalo to get in. So with this early matchup, do Baltimore still remember that? Because you are talking in the first 2 weeks, they already you talking about two division matchups already. So pretty much after week 2, 2 teams gonna have the head shot over of the other 2.
Yeah, it's
so it intrigues me. So as I look at as I look at Cleveland's remaining schedule after Pittsburgh, they play New Orleans. At New Orleans, they home to the Jets. They're at Oakland. John Gruden's back. We'll get into that down the line. Baltimore week 5, Chargers week 6. At Tampa Bay, Jameis Winston will be back by then. At Pittsburgh week 8, Kansas City comes in, and Atlanta comes in before they have a bye week. So pretty much, there is no guaranteed wins or a win that you probably can give Cleveland a 50-50 chance by the time the bye week gets around.
Oh, no. If we're going off of Cleveland being Cleveland, there's, sad to say, there's no game where I can definitively say, oh, Cleveland should get that one. I can say a game that Cleveland might win. But as far as definitively looking like, oh, look at the Cleveland Browns, they have more weapons on offense. And no. It's, Jesus. Because, I mean, the game where they have the best shot in that first stretch is New York.
That's a Thursday night game.
I don't even, to be honest with you, man, I can't even definitively say that they can beat Tampa Bay. That's the second one, though, where they truly have a shot. So that's 2-14. Then maybe, oh God, yeah, those other 3 games obviously would have to be upsets, quote unquote. But I mean, maybe Denver, maybe Case Keenum doesn't live up to the contract. Maybe he is who we thought he was. Maybe they can catch Cincinnati slipping.
They always play with Cincinnati, so I'm gonna give them one of those late games against Cincinnati. I'm gonna give them one. They always split. That's an Ohio rivalry, and they always split. I'm giving Cleveland one of those and Cincinnati the other one.
Kansas City had a quarterback change. Maybe Kansas City, even though Kansas City's yeah. Because if you really look over the years, it's been quiet and it's been slow, but Kansas City has steadily lost pieces over the years. So it'd be an upset still, but yeah, that might be where that 5th win comes from. So New York, Tampa, Kansas City, Cincinnati, and Denver. Those are the 5 where I think they might be able to pick up. And I mean, when you're coming from 0-16, I mean 5-11 is a huge improvement.
I mean, we'll see what Hugh Jackson does in his second year at the helm at Cleveland. But I'm gonna look at Cincinnati's schedule, because their schedule actually breaks up and have 8 games, bye week in the middle. They open up against the Colts, and it's to believe that Andrew Luck will be starting week 1, and that will be against Cincinnati at home. Then their home opener is against Baltimore. They go to Carolina and Atlanta.
Jeez.
Home to Miami, home to Pittsburgh, at Kansas City, home to Tampa before they bye week. That's their first 8 games. What Cincinnati team we gonna get from Marvin Lewis is the question.
This is why I didn't even bring up Cincinnati in my initial pick. Like, man, it's on paper, the Cincinnati we saw last year versus the teams on this list that we saw last year. Because, it's training camp, man. We can't do much off of training camp. Really, we can't even do much off of preseason anymore. Because I think the last time 2 teams went 0-16, they had great preseasons. So, it's tough. But if we're going off of what we saw last year, I mean, they can catch Miami. Danny Amendola is not going to be that big of a factor. They can catch Tampa Bay. They can catch Indy. But you're looking at like 3-5 going into week 9. You're out of the mix. Easy. Even if you went out. I mean, 11-5, you would have to beat New Orleans, beat Baltimore at Baltimore, beat the Chargers at Los Angeles, and then beat the Pittsburgh Steelers at Pittsburgh in the last week of the season, when surely they're going to be playing for seeding. That first half of the season is pretty much going to take them out. Because, I mean, you can't – Carolina and Atlanta, even though the NFC South rarely has back-to-back division champions, you can't count out the fact that they play the entire NFC South this year. Like, Tampa Bay finished 4th. The weird pattern with the NFC South is whoever finishes last usually wins the next year. That might not be the case this year, but I mean, Tampa can't be as bad as they were last year.
That's just the first. Second half: New Orleans, Baltimore, Cleveland, Denver, Chargers, Raiders, Browns, Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, if you go by the rule that 10 wins is what you need to make the AFC playoffs,
you don't see it happening.
I see 7 losses. I don't see 10 wins. I see 7 losses before I see 10 wins.
This brings us to Baltimore, who opens up against Buffalo. We don't know who quarterback's going to be.
They can win that, though. Tyrod Taylor, Tyrod Taylor, I'm not saying he was the only reason why they were competitive, but the way that they were so ready to get rid of Tyrod Taylor, Buffalo is not about to have a good year. So that's a
win. Week 2 is at Cincinnati. Week 3, Denver comes in. And here's the 3 stretch I'm looking at, because all three is away. Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Tennessee, all on the road. 3 weeks straight. And then when you come home to New Orleans and Drew Brees. Then you got to go back on the road to Carolina before you come home to Pittsburgh before you bye
week. Again, if you go by the rule of thumb in the AFC, Baltimore. Let's pause. Let's break it down. How did Baltimore get better this offseason? And before we answer the question, we have to stop and think. Did they truly get better by drafting a rookie quarterback who a lot of critics weren't very high on?
That's an interesting question. But if I had to rebut the question is, are they overlooking this quarterback?
I mean, you have to think to yourself, is Lamar Jackson right now better than Joe Flacco?
It's hard to say. I got it. I think that'd be I think that's one of the reasons I'm interested in watching preseason. I want to see how Lamar Jackson does when he gets the opportunity.
I mean, wait. Are you just trying to be neutral and diplomatic? Or are you actually thinking that a rookie quarterback who's a dual threat, who needs to adjust to the NFL, is automatically better than a pocket passer who has won a ring before and is pretty much the only constant cog in that offense that makes it halfway decent?
I mean, hey, we seen a rookie quarterback come in before and tell the league.
Who was the starting quarterback in front of them before?
So I mean,
Wait, no. Like, when that happens, that's because the rookie has to play from day one. Peyton Manning left before Andrew Luck was there. Who's another one? I mean, it's Matt Ryan, Michael Vick, for a lot of reasons, was gone by the time he got there. Aaron Rodgers didn't have a chance to tear it up as a rookie because he had somebody in front of him, which is the perfect example to what's going on in Baltimore. Like, Lamar Jackson, whatever happens in training camp doesn't matter because, God bless him, he's going against the old defense. It proves something, but like, you can't tell me that Lamar Jackson right now is better than Joe Flacco.
well, I'm saying this: he's pushing Joe Flacco.
Hold on.
There's reports saying that having Lamar Jackson there is pushing him.
Why? Because he actually has a backup that could start. I'm not saying Lamar Jackson can't start. He can start. So, yeah, that's going to push a starting quarterback who might have gotten comfortable. But, I mean, starting over Joe Flacco in week 1.
You never know. You know, Joe has been injured, has been dealing with some injuries past couple of seasons.
Yeah, I mean, in that scenario, and the way Ozzie Newsome has been, the way the Ravens have been as a franchise since their inception, I don't see them rushing the quarterback of their future. I just want to clarify. I'm not saying Lamar Jackson isn't their future. I'm not saying Lamar Jackson can't start this season. What I'm saying is, for him to outright beat Joe Flacco is a stretch. I just don't see why you have Joe Flacco fully healthy and rush Lamar Jackson in. The NFL for the players isn't a long game, but for the franchises, it is. When you have Pittsburgh in your division, and Pittsburgh going through a lot of drama that's about to play out in free agency next year, why do you rush and basically do what the Texans did? Because the Texans are the perfect example of why you just need to buckle down and be patient. Tear his ACL in the first year, he's not going to be the same.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, anybody that knows me knows I'm picking Pittsburgh to stay on top of the division.
Oh,
They just have too many firepowers on offense. Even though Le'Veon Bell's not happy with his contract, I mean, like,
as far as this division goes, bar none, it's the easy pick. As far as the division goes, Pittsburgh is the easy pick. Like, it's no question. You got quarterback issues in Baltimore. That defense is getting old, and then Cincinnati, Cleveland, it's not really a hard pick here. I think you're really splitting straws as far as who's going to get second when you do it like that.
but let's transition over to the NFC side. Aaron Rodgers is back healthy for the Green Bay Packers.
Yay.
Cousins is in Minnesota with an 84 fully guaranteed contract.
Yay.
Dalvin Cook is back for the Vikings in the running back position.
Yay.
Mitchell Trubisky is going into his second year with the Chicago Bears.
Ooh.
Matt Patricia left New England to become the head coach in Detroit along with Matthew Stafford as his quarterback.
Ooh.
Can we be interested in the NFC North this season?
Oh, we can definitely be interested. It's about to be a huge dumpster fire. I mean, the magical thing that made the Minnesota Vikings so good is gone. And you got a guy who has proven that he can't get over that hump. Detroit is Detroit. Green Bay if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, we can chalk them up to not doing much this season. The weird thing about the NFC North is if the quarterbacks show up, it is a fun division. And some people might say, well, no, duh, it's the NFL. Everybody needs a quarterback. No, the NFC North might be the only division where it's like if these quarterbacks get hurt or don't show up, they don't have a chance. They don't have a shot in the dark. They can't get out of a wet paper bag. The Green Bay Packers are like you look at the roster and you list off names on the roster and you're like, how does this team just fall apart when Aaron is not on the field? It's almost amazing. Like, starting off with the Packers. Chicago, Minnesota, at home. Then they go to Washington. Then they go to Buffalo. Then they play Detroit. Then they play San Francisco at Lambeau Field, but that San Francisco team, it's Then they play the Rams. God. Then they play the New England Patriots. God. Then they play Miami. Then they play Seattle. Then they play Minnesota. Then it's Arizona. Then it's Atlanta. Then Chicago. Then the Jets. Then Detroit. So they're in a really, like I said, the quarterbacks come to play this year. They're in a tough division. They're in a competitive division. Then you got the Rams, the Patriots, the 49ers. And you know what? I'm going to keep the Falcons as an up there team. And I'm going to say that between Philadelphia winning a Super Bowl and possibly hitting that slump, because they have a quarterback controversy. Wait, I'm tripping. No, they don't. Clearly they don't. But I'm looking at it. I think San Francisco and Washington take a step up. I think they reach a new tier. I think this season they'll become teams where they're not going to be there yet, but beating them actually means something in the long run. I don't think they're just going to be teams you steamroll over this year if you're a Green Bay or an Aaron Rodgers. I think that with this schedule, though, Aaron Rodgers is my preseason MVP because the moment he gets hurt, this team doesn't have a shot. This is a tough schedule.
The NFC North, everybody knows it starts and stops with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. Minnesota has the best defense in that division, bar none. But it all starts with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay.
I completely agree. I feel like if Aaron Rodgers is healthy, you got a Minnesota team with Kirk Cousins, who I'm a big proponent of. Once you start your career as a professional in any field, after your first 5 years, I mean, you're a veteran. You've learned what you need to do your job the best of your ability, to be as efficient as you can be. You got Kirk Cousins. He's saving money. He's living with his in-laws or something like that. He's being super cheap. Like, he stayed all the way through his senior year. Like, Kirk Cousins is thinking long game, but not in the football sense. It's you give him this contract.
The first ever fully guaranteed contract, by the way. The first ever fully guaranteed contract.
Exactly. You're giving him this contract when you could have got Case Keenum for probably way less. I mean, what's Case Keenum on, a 3-year deal in Denver?
I believe so.
So you can get Case Keenum, who can return and pick up where he left off for way cheaper and put weapons around him and compete in free agency. Or you can give a quarterback who's basically proven that he's not going to get that job done. We're talking about giving the biggest first ever fully guaranteed contract to somebody who's at Andy Dalton's level. He's a guy who's going to make the Pro Bowl because everybody got hurt or didn't want to go. That's what you're talking about with Kirk Cousins. I don't see Kirk Cousins beating Matthew Stafford or Aaron Rodgers in a duel. What do you think about it? If it's Aaron Rodgers versus Kirk Cousins or Matthew Stafford versus Kirk Cousins, does Kirk Cousins ever win any of those duels?
I don't think so.
All right, so you're already looking just quarterback-wise, you're third.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers.
And
Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford is like the comeback kid of the NFL. Like he's
Matthew
always
Stafford
coming
is the
back.
next Dan Marino. Matthew Stafford ain't getting a ring, but when you look at his stats when it's all said and done, he's basically this generation's Dan Marino. You can't tell me Matt Stafford isn't one of the best quarterbacks ever. He's just not going to get a ring. I mean, when you think of the season that Calvin Johnson had, if I remember correctly, Matthew Stafford was there for all 16 games. Like the historic seasons that have been put up, besides the 0-16 season, dude, Stafford was there. The playoff appearances, the resurgences, the double-digit wins. Like Matthew Stafford in this era of Detroit Lions football has been there for all of it. And the Detroit Lions are one of the few teams that have never made a Super Bowl. So what you're basically saying is, in one of the best eras in Detroit Lions history, Matthew Stafford has been the point man. Like, he's not underrated. I don't think he's underrated. But I think casual fans might not give Matthew Stafford the true credit he deserves. Which is why Mitchell Trubisky, he's young. He's a draft pick. So he needs time. He has receivers. He got a new receiver. But, I mean, dude, come on, man. Aaron Rodgers and Matt Stafford, healthy.
I mean, the question is, do they have a running game now? Because LeGarrette Blount came over from Philly after winning the Super Bowl. He came over to Detroit now.
And LeGarrette Blount is that running back. He ran track in college, but he was never truly known for quickness. He could do a hurdle every now and then, but LeGarrette Blount is a 250-pound bruiser. If LeGarrette Blount loses a step, that's okay. LeGarrette Blount is not a shifty back. LeGarrette Blount is not a let me catch this ball and go 50 yards with it. No. LeGarrette Blount is going to do just enough to open up that box. And when he opens up that box, I mean, it's... Ooh.
So pretty much you can say Detroit has a 1-2 punch now. Because Emil Aduda can do those things like LeGarrette Blount can't do.
Exactly. Like when you have Matthew Stafford who can go for 5,000 yards, then you give him a 1-2 punch at running back. And if I remember correctly, Golden Tate is still there, right?
Golden Tate is still there. He's still the number one.
So yeah, you got your number one receiver. You got a 1-2 punch at running back. And you got a quarterback returning who's basically the best quarterback the franchise has ever had. It's like I said, it's a cop-out, but dude, it's true. If Aaron Rodgers and Matt Stafford stay healthy, the Minnesota Vikings and Chicago Bears don't have a shot, man.
And speaking of Chicago Bears, the new helmet rule came out. And their first round draft pick by Chicago, Waquan Smith, still hasn't signed his rookie deal because of that rule that in language says if he was to get suspended for delivering such a hit, that Chicago can take some of his guaranteed money away. That's the news coming out of Chicago right now.
Wait, so Chicago drafted a linebacker in the first round. Now, you everybody knows there is no. They didn't know the rule. The owners know everything that's on the table. So the Chicago Bears had an idea of the rules that were on the table for this year's rule meeting. And they drafted a linebacker in the first round, but want to put in his contract that if he violates this rule and gets suspended, they can reclaim guaranteed money.
Yes, because they brought this rule to the Philadelphia Eagles and they didn't know what to make of it. They're confused. So somehow this rule is supposed to take into effect during the preseason, but you have teams that don't know what this rule really is or fully understand it. So now they are skeptical because now you're talking about us getting suspended, taking away money. So that's what Waquan is at right now. So you're like, y'all want me to come into the NFL, throw a new rule out here, and then if I get in trouble because of that rule, you can take some of my guaranteed money.
Like, essentially, you want to take away my paycheck for getting suspended because I was playing football the way you're supposed to play football. I got suspended for playing football, and you want to take away my money that I earned from playing football. You want me to basically give a refund for something that I already did that involved me putting my body on the line and not yours.
So the NFL, they continue to try to find a way to make this game safer, but at the
They're
same
not.
time,
They're not. It's impossible. When you're getting to the point where you're going to have helmet rules and you have these guys that are coming, not everybody is Johnny Manziel. These guys aren't coming from money like that. These guys have a piece of paper that can put them in the middle class depending on their major, and that's it. It's not like that piece of paper that they got from college is truly going to guarantee wealth and success in their life. You got guys where you're basically saying, hey, that helmet-to-helmet hit that gets you suspended and we take the money can paralyze you, but we still want that money back. Like that rinky dink, and I'm saying rinky dink because compared to the second contract that he could get, that $25,000, $50,000, $70,000 game check that they're gonna take away, if that's the last football game he ever plays, that's a year's salary for most people. How is it making the game safer when every single rookie class that comes in, you're basically making it harder for them to play the game? You're making it more and more impossible for them to learn how to survive in the NFL. And when the CBA comes around, unfortunately, the players are probably going to be so worried about drug testing that they're not even going to realize how the last generation of players messed over all these rookies and young players. Because for every Todd Gurley, for every Blake Bortles, there's a ton of guys who were drafted in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round that we never even hear from again. Well, tying this to the NFC North, Chicago's going to Chicago. So, they can have fun. They can have fun signing their first-round pick. That's a linebacker, not a corner, not a defensive tackle, a linebacker. They can have fun. They can have fun with that. Man, here's an off-the-field thing that I'm just going to randomly guess at and speculate. Pure speculation. I don't know if this would be true or not. I don't think it helps that the NBA offseason was as rich and lucrative as it was, and you got guys like Le'Veon Bell and Aaron Donald in their contract situations, and you're in the Chicago Bears locker room, you're seeing how these superstars are getting treated. You're seeing how your sport pales in comparison to the other sports, and then you see your first-round draft pick basically in a holdout. Not for more money, not for less money, but because him playing football the way he's supposed to play football can cause him to lose guaranteed money. It's one of those things where it's like the rule change is already hard because players are already going to have to play differently because they don't want to get suspended. But now you're saying, well, geez. So if I get suspended, that basically means when I hit free agency, I'm going to have to go through what this kid is going through. How am I already can't touch you. I can't bump you. I have to turn my head to look at the football when you run a 4.2 40. Like I already have to do so much. Now you're changing the way I have to tackle. Is this for player safety or is this for ratings? Because if you can't tackle a receiver over the middle, if you can't hit a 260-pound tight end over the middle, tell me how they're supposed to play the defense to beat a Green Bay. The defense to tackle a Mike Evans and not let Mike Evans go off. The defense to tackle a Danny Amendola who's going over the middle. To tackle a New England offense that's basically an evolved West Coast offense. To tackle a New York Jets team that's going to rely on the run. To tackle a Buffalo team that's going to rely on the run. To tackle a Detroit team who can do both. To tackle a Minnesota team with Stephon Diggs going deep. To tackle OBJ. To tackle Todd Gurley. To tackle Green Bay again. To tackle Marquise Goodwin and Carlos. Like, how? How are they supposed to play the defense to beat these teams that have phenomenal wide receivers and running games? How is this supposed to project in the long term when you have a young quarterback trying to figure it out? You didn't have that great of a rookie campaign, and your defense is seeing this unfold after already having to figure out how this rule change is even supposed to work.
So let's go ahead and dive into these schedules. How many wins can we see from each team? Chicago Bears open up in a night game, Sunday night football against Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers is back healthy. Green Bay, Chicago, one of the oldest rivalries.
Green Bay's going to get that one.
And then they have Seattle coming in to Soldier Field at Arizona, Tampa Bay before they bye week, at Miami, New England comes in, the Jets at the Bills, Detroit, Minnesota at Detroit, at the Giants, Los Angeles Rams, Green Bay at San Fran, at Minnesota. Last year they went 5-11, more or less.
Their division alone might be 6 losses. 7 losses with New England. 7 losses with San Francisco. 8 losses with San Francisco. 9 losses with Seattle. Like I said, are they going to be able to hit Amendola? Amendola shows up when he needs to. Dude, I'm already at 10 losses, dude. Yeah, 5-11, I guess. Because I see 10 losses right now.
You go ahead and count that 11-1 because they got the Rams on their schedule.
Oh,
yeah, I'm marking that as an L for sure.
Dude, that New York by week 13. Eli Manning can't be in a slump this doggone long. This long. He has to rebound this year.
Detroit went 9-7 last year.
Oh, dude, like I said, this defense is about to struggle. They're about to struggle. This conference's offenses are loaded. And they have quarterbacks at the helm who can at least get the job done in the regular season. You got Allen Robinson coming off of injury. I believe you got, hold on. I know you got Allen Robinson coming off injury. Spent a whole year out of football. And he was on the Jaguars. Obviously did pretty decent. Made some Pro Bowls. But who else are we looking at? Who are his weapons?
So my question is this, though. Looking at Detroit. Can Matthew Stafford get them 9 wins again?
Let's see.
Can Matt Patricia bring that mentality that he brought into the Patriots to Detroit on the defensive side?
And that's it. That's the problem when you hire a defensive coach. Is Matt Patricia going to be wise enough to hire an offensive coordinator and leave him alone? You got the franchise quarterback. You got the 1-2 punch. You got the number 1 receiver. Are you going to be smart enough to hire an offensive coordinator and leave him alone?
They have an interesting schedule. They open up Monday night against the Jets. They go to San Fran. Sunday night football, the Patriots come into town. Dallas come in after that. Green Bay after that. They have a bye week. So they first 5 games, it's a pretty good stretch. I can see them beating the Jets.
Oh, I'm trying to figure out why the Jets have so many primetime games.
We'll get into that when we go to the East. I might give them Dallas. Miami's a toss-up. I don't know what Seattle team I'm going to get. I'm going to say they split with Minnesota. They split with Chicago. Carolina, Rams, Cardinals. I get them Buffalo. So that's 5 wins I've seen right there. And Matthew Stafford at the helm, I think they'll sneak in about a good 3 or 4. So yeah, I can see them going 9-7 again.
They're my second place pick. Because if I tend to lean towards the defensive side of the ball as far as fandom. So when I think of Minnesota's defense and the fact that Kirk Cousins, he won't at least lose you the game. See, their defense should be able to somewhat handle Garoppolo. He had a good run, but, he was traded mid-season. That's literally last-minute game planning. Now that everybody has a chance to game plan for the San Francisco 49ers, you know, they should beat San Francisco. They should beat Buffalo because Buffalo has no offense. They got blown up by Philly, and Philly's basically returning just about everybody and adding people. They should beat Arizona. They should beat New York. If you're going defense to offense, they should beat Detroit. They should beat Chicago. They should hang with Green Bay. They should hang with New England. They should beat Seattle. If we're talking defense to offense, they should beat Seattle. They should beat Miami. So
it sounds like you picking Green Bay to win the division.
Oh, Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers' health. I'm definitely picking Green Bay to win the division. The only reason they lost last year is because Aaron Rodgers got hurt.
Went 7-9 last year. They schedule sets up Chicago, Minnesota at Washington, Buffalo at Detroit, San Fran bye week. That's their first 6 games, and then they come after the bye week at LA, at New England, home to Miami, at Seattle, at Minnesota, home to Arizona, home to Atlanta, at Chicago, at the Jets, home to Detroit.
I'm not saying they're going to go 13-3, but the only 3 games I see that they absolutely have to lose that I won't pick them in is Atlanta, Los Angeles, and New England. Those are only 3 games where I absolutely won't pick them because you're talking about Aaron Rodgers carrying them against New England, carrying them against Los Angeles, and carrying them against Atlanta.
I say they split with Minnesota. They split with Detroit.
Which game against Detroit are they going to lose?
I say they lose the one in Detroit, week 5.
Okay, that's feasible. That's before injury should be kicking in. So, okay, I can see that one.
At LA, I'm picking the Rams. At New England, that's a toss-up for me. Seattle, for some reason, they don't do well. They don't do well in Seattle. At Seattle, they don't do well at Seattle. So that's one. They do good against Seattle at home, but at Seattle, I'm not sure. But they do have Aaron Rodgers, so I say they will get 10 wins at the least. They at least will get 10 wins. And then you come to the reigning defending NFC North champs, the Minnesota Vikings. They opened up against San Fran, at Green Bay, home to Buffalo, at Los Angeles, Thursday Night Football, circle that week 4. Then circle week 5 at Philly the very next week, home to Arizona, at the Giants, at the New York Jets, home to New Orleans, home to Detroit, at they have a bye week on week 10, at Chicago, Green Bay at home, at New England, at Seattle, home to Miami, at Detroit, home to Chicago.
If we're looking at everybody on paper, schedule, quarterback, precedence, I don't see how you don't pick Green Bay.
You might be right because in Minnesota's away games, oh man, their away games are something serious. At Green Bay, at Los Angeles Rams, at Philly, at New England, at Seattle. They can pretty much lose all 5 of those games.
And that's 11-5 already. Now you're talking about are they going to make the wild card in the NFC?
It's gonna be an interesting one. The NFC North's gonna be an interesting division to look at because Kirk Cousins is in Minnesota. I'm gonna roll with Green Bay. I'm gonna pick Green Bay to win the division. I'm gonna pick Green Bay. I can trust Aaron Rodgers more than I can trust Kirk Cousins.
So we both pick Pittsburgh and we both pick Green Bay.
That's the way it's gonna go. That's the way it's gonna be. So but that's all the time we got for today. Just remember, we both picked Pittsburgh in the AFC North. We both picked Green Bay in the NFC North. We're looking at Oklahoma to repeat as the Big 12 champs. And we're saying the group of 5, UCF, Boise State, San Diego State, Fresno State. We're picking one of those 4 to come out and get a New Year's 6 bid. Catch us next time. On tomorrow, we talking wrestling Dallas. What you got going on for Friday's episode?
Well, the women's division, it's got some pretty big matches coming up. We found out in addition to the women's championship match at SummerSlam, we got a big TV debut coming on Monday. And yeah, the men's main event picture and mid card picture is kind of, I guess you could say, it's heating up. Some very, very interesting developments and promos happen on Raw. We'll talk about that more tomorrow.
All right. Until tomorrow. If you're in Jacksonville, you can catch me at St. Paul Missionary Baptist Church. We're having a worship night. Come out and hang out with us. Enjoy a good time. We'll talk to y'all tomorrow.
Later.